Right, so populism is a term you might hear thrown around when discussing divisive figures like Trump or Boris Johnson. Because of its proximity to these types of people, it can be easily misunderstood. It's not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It's more of a political strategy adopted by both sides of the aisle. Its bare bones definition is a fight against a small group of people who hold power by a large group of people, usually led by a charismatic leader. These groups could be the working class or and the owning class in the case of left-wing populism, or in the case of right-wing populism, it's usually a fight between vaguely defined common people. Vaguely defined common people against a deep state, establishment, or other amorphous elitist group. As you can probably tell by these two definitions, right-wing and left-wing populism are mainly different in the way that they define their groups. Left-wing populism provides clear definitions, whilst right-wing populism is purposefully vague. This ambiguity serves the right wing in a multitude of ways. Firstly, it deflects blame from the rich. In most right-wing populism, you'll notice that they criticize anyone but the owning class. This is because their actual policy is designed to enrich the owning class, whilst robbing everyday people of bare necessities, so ganging up on rich people really wouldn't make any sense for them. They can't, however, gang up on poor people, because obviously that wouldn't win them as many votes, so they're left with one option, which is usually bullying minorities. Right-wing politicians have to constantly deny the effect the owning class is having on society, and this means that they almost always have to come up with unsupported conspiracies, false realities, in order to redirect their audience's anger. You can see this with QAnon in America, and you can see this with the demonization of immigrants in the UK. But I think the best way to demonstrate this is the recent and clear uptick in the right-wing politicians' demonization of trans people. When right-wing politicians surround trans people with hateful legislation, and more recently, clear and evident stochastic terrorism, they have only one reason. It's not to protect kids or because they care about their health. It's because for their politics to work, they always need to have an enemy. This demonization of an innocent group is also demonstrated pretty well in Nazi Germany. Hitler, who was a right-wing populist, capitalized on a pre-existing anti-Semitic prejudice in the country in order to rise to power. He blamed the loss of World War I on the Jews and promised the German people that expelling the Jewish population would fix Germany's problems. Obviously, we know that him coming to power, committing genocide and starting World War II didn't really improve the lives of the German people, or indeed the lives of people living in any of the nations on Earth. So in conclusion, really, right-wing populism, it creates false enemies to direct working class anger towards the wrong people. They always prefer to keep us fighting the culture war instead of engaging in effective class warfare. This is so they can keep getting away with draining the earth of its resources and exploiting us for our labour. So how do we combat this type of populism? How do we deprogram somebody who's been convinced that minorities are causing society's woes? How do you provide an effective counter to the emotional rhetoric that's been deployed by right-wing politicians and pundits? I have a few of my own suggestions, but I'd really like to hear some other people's as well. Feel good?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've gone over some good things. I think the main point we've been going over is the emotions that the right-wing populists will use is all the negative kind of powerful emotions. I think while it's a nice idea to say that love and compassion would be a good counter to these. I don't know if they're as strong emotions. I think it's definitely possible, but I don't think it would be effective on a large scale. I think when you look at these young kind of terminally online neo-Nazis, they're obsessed with power, right? And they're obsessed with strength. I think publicly demonstrating how silly their ideology is in front of them is probably the best way, I think, to combat it, right? Yeah. To kind of pull people away from that pipeline, to kind of stop them from getting radicalized and stop them from falling down this kind of right-wing pipeline. Yeah, I don't think debating them one-on-one is necessarily very effective, because when you debate people, no one really changes their minds. That they're not really going to change their minds, right? You're probably either gonna they're probably gonna stay with the art, or you're gonna push them further down where they further down their own kind of avenue of thought, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think publicly demonstrating their thought leaders how ridiculous they are, that's probably the best way to do it. What else did we talk about? I think it's wrong to say that like the right wing demonization of minorities started in like the early 2000s. I think there's plenty of like historical examples of it happening like a long time before that. I think it's a very easily accessible thing that right wingers have been doing for years and years. You know, I think it might have become more visible like around that time because of obviously like the internet. You can all these like algorithms kind of speeding up people's radicalization. Yeah. But yeah, I personally don't think that there's anyone who can be like, I don't think it's like a very productive to say that there's certain people who can't have their minds changed. I think that I think it's dangerous to leave people behind and say they're beyond rehabilitation. I think it's possible to rehabilitate anyone as long as you like remove them from that environment they're in and show them that there's like positive things you can do, and that hating people is not the answer. It's never worked. If you show them, obviously emotion and stuff like that is a lot more powerful than rationality, but I think removing them from that kind of toxic environment and really kind of showing them that they can do good and they don't have to kind of spend all their time hating people, I think that can be more productive than just saying we can't help you, you know. So yeah, that's all I had. Yeah.